All right, so we are right at 6 o'clock, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we're going to get started on today's meeting. Good evening. Welcome to the Metropolitan Branch Trail virtual pre-construction meeting. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the DDOT YouTube page. The meeting presentation and recording will also be published on the project website. This meeting is being live streamed on the DDOT Facebook page. If you wish to your voice not to be recorded, you may use the chat or the QA function to enter comments and questions. So with that, if we can go to the next slide. So just want to kind of give a little information about the meeting. And again, this covers where the YouTube video can be located at youtube.com/d.videos, and of course at facebook.com/d.dc. Next tab. And again, if you have any technical assistance, you can reach call 202-309-3491. So if you have a question, we will allocate an opportunity for anyone to ask a question at the end of the presentation. You can simply raise your hand and we'll bring you off mute. And of course, you can type your question at any time in the Q&A section, and we will answer them as received during the Q&A section. Next slide. So when you are asking a question, we will at any time, presently in the session, you're not able to unmute yourself. When you are able to ask a question, or when we get to the Q&A portion, we will allow you to unmute yourself. You simply hit the unmute at the bottom of the screen. Next to that is the raise hand function, which will indicate that you have a question. When you are finished with your question, or if you hit it inadvertently, just simply click the raise hand feature again, and it will lower your hand. Again, all cameras are off for the purpose of allowing panelists to be able to present information and you all to receive it undistracted. With that, I will turn it over to the team so that you all can we can begin the presentation. So I would like to turn it over to Samir Alawande, who is the DDOT project manager. Good evening, Samir.
Good evening. Thank you, Danzel. Yeah, my name is Samir Hamdi. I'm the project manager for the NBT project from Fort Totten, Takoma. And I'm going to introduce Zara Duri. She's the program manager. She's not be able to attend this meeting, but she's really the program manager for this project as well. And I would turn it to Omid. Do you want to introduce yourself, Omid?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Omid Gami. I'm Supervisor Strategy and Team 2 IPMA in DDOT.
Michael Albino, would you like to introduce yourself? Thanks, Omid.
Yes, thank you, Samir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Albino. I'm the Trails Program Manager here at DDOT in the Planning and Sustainability Division.
Thank you, Michael. And turn it to Sean.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Davis. I'm the Consulting Project Manager working with DDOT on this project.
Lastly, we'll go with Danzel.
Yes, and good evening again. Donzo Robinson, and I'll be leading the community engagement for this project.
I don't know if you, Alexis and Katie, you want to introduce yourself since you're part of the team. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself quickly, or I think we're fine. All right, so the agenda of today for this project, we'll talk about the project overview and objective, and then we're going to move to the project improvements. And then the construction phases, which is go through each phase of this construction for this project, and also what you can expect during the construction. We're gonna talk more about the safety and maintenance of traffic during the work of that constructing the trail and all like improvements. And also we're gonna can tell you about the community engagement, how we're gonna reach out during this construction phase. And lastly, I'm sure we're gonna have a session for questions. So if you have any question, please just hold it to the end of the presentation, and we have some time to answer all your questions. And if you want to answer a question like what Donald said, we have a section you could just type your questions, or you could speak if you would like to by raising your hand. Next slide, please. So now I turn it to Michael Alvino, who will talk a little bit about the Capital Trail networks. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Samer. So the Metropolitan Branch Trail, or the MBT, is what we also call it, is an element of the Capital Trails Network. The Capital Trails Network is a planned regional network of multi-use trails for pedestrians and bicyclists across the district, Maryland, and Virginia. Ultimately, this will connect for pedestrians and bicyclists throughout the region, including connections to the Capital Crescent Trail, as well as the Anacostia River Trail. And this regional initiative is really about connecting not just for transportation, but connecting residential areas with work areas, as well as with recreational areas. And the goal of the Capital Trails Network is to transform public life by providing healthy, low-stress access to open space, and as well as reliable transportation for people of all ages and abilities. Next slide, please. So if you are not familiar with the Metropolitan Branch Trail, the Metropolitan Branch Trail is a planned 8-mile multi-use trail for pedestrians and bicyclists that ultimately will connect Union Station in DC with Silver Spring, Maryland. This project, the idea for this trail goes back to community demand in the 1990s and has been developed and constructed in phases going back to the year 2000. So I wanted to provide an update tonight on some of the other phases that are in development of the Metropolitan Branch Trail. Tonight, we'll be focusing on the construction of the section between Fort Totten and Takoma, which is the dashed blue line that you see here on the map. We have many other phases that are currently in development. There's a section on 8th Street Northeast between Franklin and Monroe, where we are planning to add protected bike lanes later this summer. Recently, we completed the construction just last year of the segment between Brookland and Fort Totten that this project you'll hear about tonight will connect into. In the Takoma area, we have a project between Blair Road and Piney Branch Road. This project has been under design for the past 2 years, and we're currently approaching what we call the 65% design or intermediate design, and we'll be holding a public meeting and providing an update on that project later this year. And then lastly, as you get into Maryland or closer to Maryland along Eastern Avenue, there's a section within the district that was completed 2 years ago in 2021. Next slide, please. Here, I'll turn it back to you, Samer.
Oh, thanks, Michael. So now we're going to talk more detail about the Mid Branch from Fort Totten to Takoma. As Michael mentioned, this project will be focusing on Fort Totten Metro Station to Takoma Metro Station, or neighborhood, we could say. So the trail will be like on and off street. So if you look at the map, the green section, the green side is showing the off street, and the red side, the red line was showing the one on the street. So we're gonna start from Fort Totten Metro Station, making left on Riggs Road, and then turn to right on First Street, all the way to going across New Hampshire with First Street, and moving to McDonald's, and making a right turn into McDonald's all the way to Blair Road, and until we pass the Wamata Metro Station to Aspen, and we turn like a right in Aspen into Aspen Street. Then we make a left turn to Sandy Spring. That will be end of the project. So as we know, we've been with you guys during the design phase, which is what we finished it on 100% design in summer 2022. We have some like 6 months to almost for procurement and advertisements. So now we are entering the construction phase of this project. So next slide, please. So the project objective for MBT will be, the scope of work will be construct a new section, which is, as I said before, off on a street multi-use trail. We're gonna do update utilities within the new trail as well. improve roadway frontage and parking provision, also update vehicle and trail user signage. And the schedule over the construction phase will be, the notice to proceed will be July 19th, 2023, will be tomorrow, the first day. We start mobilization to the site. Anticipated substantial completion will be June 18, 2025. That will when the contractor finish the work, and then final acceptance. That means when DDOT review and do the review the work and the evaluation will be July 18th, and 2025 will be the final acceptance for the work. And the budget for this project, so typically we have like 80% federally funded and 20% locally funded for this project. It will be like, and the total low bid for this was $12,177,167.23, and awarded for the Fort Myer construction to do the work as a low bidder. Please, next slide, please. Yes, as I said, the project improvement will include some more detail here. Talk about will we have more sidewalk restoration as well, ADA upgrade, ADA upgrades to serve the bikers using the trail. Also, utility upgrade along Blair Road and Riggs Road. We do some roadway resurfacing since we do some drainage improvements, a new signage and audio mark for vehicles and trail users, a tree preservation, green space reclamations. Parking improvement will add 11 spaces along Blair Road. And also we do some streetscaping amenities such as signals and street lights, all these kind of like benefit Blair Roads, and bicyclist path preservations. Next slide, please. So now I turn it to Sean. He will go talk to you about the construction activities in detail. Sean.
Thank you, Summer. Yeah, so discussing the construction activities here, and these are listed in the general order in which you will see them taking place in the field. There may be some variation here and there, but this is the general order. So we'll have some upgrades to underground utilities in which we'll be working closely with DC Water and Washington Gas, as they will have overlapping upgrade projects of their own. As an overall conglomerate to upgrade the utilities in this area. We'll be upgrading some storm sewer systems as well as upgrades to the lighting and traffic signals along the corridor. Then we'll move into the flat work portion of the construction, which consists mainly of the trail construction itself, curb and gutter replacements along the sides of the roads, sidewalk and ADA ramp upgrades, as well as replacing some of the driveways that are immediately adjacent to the trail sections and the roadway upgrades. Then we'll move into more of the final phases of the project with the roadway resurfacing, as well as some median construction along the corridor. Then we'll move into landscaping and the streetscape improvements that Summer mentioned earlier. We would like to point out that all available lanes will be open during the morning and evening rush hours to minimize any impacts to traffic flow and things of that nature. The work hours that you will see Fort Myer working will vary based on the road conditions as we see them at the time and contractual requirements. Next slide, please.
Sean, as we switch to the next slide, we've had several asks if everyone could please speak up. So if you could please speak up so that others, they can hear. So thank you.
Okay. All right. So moving into the construction or project sequence, as we've mentioned before, this project is broken down into phases. There are a total of 5 phases. We're going to start here with phase 1, which we anticipate spanning from summer of 2023, which is this summer, into the winter of 2023. That phase will encompass the area between Fort Totten Metro Station, the parking area there, and to South Dakota Avenue Northeast, as you can see on the right with this picture there. Some of the activities you can expect to see during phase 1, we will be constructing a new on and off street multi-use trail segments. You can expect to see street light replacements, some storm system upgrades during this phase, tree preservations, existing tree preservations, and some green space reclamation. There will be no signal work during this phase, and by that I mean traffic signal work. Next slide, please. Okay, so from phase one, at the completion of phase one, we're going to move into phase two, which we anticipate starting in winter of 2023 and carrying us to winter of 2024. This section, as you can see again here on the right, with the picture there, will span from South Dakota Avenue Northeast to McDonald Place Northeast, and then over to Blair Road Northwest. Yes, and then some of the activities you can expect during phase two, new on and off street multi-use trail, again here, continuing with the streetlight updates during this phase, and as well as the storm system upgrades, sidewalk replacements, existing tree preservations and new plantings, and as well as green space reclamation during this phase. And here again, no signal work is planned for this phase two. Okay, next slide. Okay, moving from phase two into phase three. Phase three, we anticipate spanning from winter of 2024 to the spring of 2025, which will take us close to the end of the project. And this area we will span between Blair Road Northwest, along Blair Road Northwest, I'm sorry, from Oglethorpe Street Northwest down to Aspen Street Northwest. And the main focus of the work in this phase will be concentrated on the east side of the roadway. And if you look to the picture on your right, that is generally oriented north to south. So that would be the area to the right of the green line there. Phase three activities, here again, more of the new off-street multi-use trail indicated with the green line there on the photo. You will see some traffic signal modifications during this phase, and the intersections are listed there. Intersection of Riggs Road Northeast and First Street Northeast, the intersection of New Hampshire Avenue Northeast, South Dakota Avenue Northeast, McDonald Place North, as well as the intersection between Kansas Avenue Northwest, North Dakota Avenue Northwest, Peabody Street Northwest, and Blair Road Northwest. Also at the intersection of Van Buren Street Northwest and Blair Road Northwest, as well as Aspen Street Northwest and Blair Road Northwest. There will be some intersection roadway widening taking place during this phase. You'll see some pedestrian safety improvements, storm grade upgrades, storm system upgrades, tree preservations, as well as green space reclamation. Next slide, please. Okay. So moving into phase four, which we anticipate taking place during the spring of 2025. This phase will be spanning from along Blair Road again, from Oglethorpe Street Northwest to Aspen Street Northwest, and a small portion on Sandy Road Northwest. This area, the construction during this phase will be primarily focused on the west side of the roadway. So in the photo there on the right, that would just be the left side of the green line there. And the activities you can expect to see during phase four, some more pedestrian safety improvements, along with additional storm system upgrades that will continue into this phase, as well as continuing of the tree preservations and plantings, and green space reclamation, as well as some improvements to the green space areas. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so bringing us into the final phase of the project, phase five, which we anticipate to take place during the summer of 2025. This area encompasses several locations along Blair Road. There's a location at Oglethorpe Street Northwest, Aspen Street Northwest, and then there's a small location on Sandy Spring Road. This phase of the construction is going to be mainly focused on median work. So as you see in the photos on the right, there's locations with the medians indicated with red markings there. And some of the activities you can expect to see during Phase 5. You see more pedestrian safety improvements. You'll also see median additions as well as some replacements of the medians in the roadway. Some roadway resurfacing will be taking place during Phase 5, landscape plantings, as well as the streetscape amenities upgrades during Phase 5. Okay. Next slide. So more on what to expect during construction and how the construction, and will have community impacts. During the construction, you can expect to see some underground utility work. We will be coordinating with ongoing Washington Gas and DC Water construction projects, as I mentioned earlier. During the construction, you can expect to see some lane closures and some temporary traffic pattern changes. Temporary and daily closures or changes that you'll see for during the construction will be done with traffic barrels and traffic cones. Some of the longer term closures or pattern changes will be done with traffic barriers, and those will either be the bright orange water-filled traffic barriers that you see or concrete barriers. We will have some temporary parking restrictions during the construction. It's important to note here that any parking restrictions, we will be putting out notifications ahead of time and coordinating specifically with specific locations to minimize any impacts to specific locations. There will be some temporary impacts to vehicle building access as well as parking, and most likely there will be some impacts to mail and parcel deliveries. But here again, we've stressed that we will work and coordinate specifically with the folks that will be impacted directly by this, and we will make every effort to minimize those impacts. There will be some temporary sidewalk closures that will be done with pedestrian detours. So there will be some temporary closure of WMATA bus stops, and we will be working closely with WMATA to give advance notice to the public as well as the WMATA folks to minimize any impacts and make sure everybody's notified well in advance for those closures. Next slide. Okay, so more on what to expect during construction. So we'll talk about work hours. Generally, the work hours will be Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The work hours will vary based on road conditions, and here again, all available lanes open during morning and evening rush hour to minimize any traffic impacts. And if you have questions about that, feel free to raise your hand or ask questions in during the Q&A session. We do expect a small amount of Saturday and night work. This will only be for special circumstances with DDOT approval and advanced public notice. So you will get advance notice of any night work or Saturday work that comes open. We don't expect any work to take place on Sundays. And also, it is important to notice here that the use of all mechanical impact demolition equipment will be prohibited between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. So there will be no demolition during the night of any kind. And then there on the right, you can see some photos, some examples of the traffic control devices and the type of work that you can expect to see. Next slide, please. Okay, so safety and MOT, some of the safety devices you can expect to see are indicated there on the right in the photos, with the uppermost photo being pedestrian channelizers as well as some traffic jumps. So the pedestrian channelizer will obviously be used to maneuver pedestrians in and around the construction site and help to ensure access to buildings and other locations of business. And down the bottom, again, traffic cones with a sequential arrow board indicating direction of the traffic should flow. The maintenance of traffic, again, will be done with advanced warning signs and arrow boards, as you see on the bottom right. There will be some portable variable message signs posted at strategic locations along the project corridor. During work, minimum 10-foot travel lanes will be maintained for vehicles, as well as a minimum of 4-foot for 4-foot sidewalks for pedestrians. And we will work very closely with specific locations to maintain access to businesses and residents during construction. Pedestrian safety, we will maintain ADA accessibility during construction. That will never change. You'll always have ADA accessible routes through the project that will protect you again from construction activities and are meant to separate. Safety, so field personnel on the project will be wearing highly visible PPE or personal protection equipment, which consists of a vest, hard hats, as well as in some cases at night, maybe some flashing lights on their hard hats. We do ask that the general public please do not enter work zones. If you see a pedestrian barrier or any other type of barrier on the project, please, if you need to access a location, we just request that you speak to one of the individuals there working, ask to speak with the supervisor, and we will work with you to get access to the location that you need to get access to. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I'll turn it back over to Donzel.
Thank you, Sean. So again, we are capturing the questions that you all are putting in the Q&A. As soon as we get past these last few slides, we will begin to read those questions and indicate those who have asked to ask their question verbally. We will unmute you. So to stay updated and engaged in the progress of the project, we wanted to provide you with the project website, which is located here. Again, mbt-Fort Totten-Tacoma.dc.gov. You will be able to see major project milestones, construction activity, and traffic pattern changes on the website. And if you need to email the project directly, and this information is being put into the chat, you can email at metbranchtrail@dc.gov. This way you can notify the project team of any questions or concerns that you may have during the project itself. Next slide. Also, as a recipient of federal assistance, we like to know who attends the meetings so that information can be reported out. At the end of the meeting, you will be put directly into the questionnaire where you can just provide some basic information so that we can begin to track who's here. If you're on your computer, you can also simply scan the QR code that is on this slide, and it will take you directly to the Title VI form. It is a PDF that you can fill out right there on your phone. And again, you will be able to fill it out at the end of this session. Next slide. So with that, I think we are ready to begin to ask questions. Several of you have begun to put those questions in the chat, so we will answer them in order. If you would prefer to come off mute and ask your question, again, feel free to raise your hand. We have a few questions in the chat we'll get through. Once we get to where you are, and Mr. Patton, I know I noted where you indicated you have some questions. So as soon as we get there, I will make sure that you have an opportunity to ask the question so you didn't lose your place in queue by not typing it. And we will go from there. So next slide. So again, I'm sorry, you can back up one. So again, this is the information. And the first question for the team is from Judy, and it asks, what street trees will be removed? What number of replacement trees will be planted? Where will they be planted, and when will they be planted? So Sean, I'm going to, as always, pass the question to you, and if there's others who you believe can answer or provide more, add to whatever answer you give, feel free to call on them.
Hey, okay, thank you for the question.
You may answer, Sean, or you know that?
I can answer
Okay.
part of it. I don't know the exact species right off the hand. There's several different species that will be planted, and there's also several locations where they'll be removed. Don't know if we could probably have to look to give exact locations and the street tree numbers as well, how many exactly will be replaced. We can get back to you with that information.
Sammer?
No, I just want to just question. Actually, we're adding more trees, but we're not removing any trees on this project. I think I know Judy, she got confused different sections of the project, different phase, but we're adding trees, but we're not removing any trees on this section.
Thank you.
Preston.
The next question is, are you seriously considering going up and down Sandy Spring, turning the corner by the senior building, which is a blind spot already and dangerous for cars, and will be very dangerous when adding bikes speeding up and down Sandy Spring. So at Sandy Spring, the corner near the senior building, is that the route of the bike trail or the branch trail currently?
So I could answer this one. So Judy, for this section, yeah, we added to comment. Yes, we're gonna have the bike lanes will be off the street on Sandy Spring, but it's not gonna be the blind points which you comment on during the design. We will be we're gonna have like a ramp leading Sandy Spring to Maple, so we're not gonna have the blind points. So that the bikers will go back, share the traffic on Maple. So that corner, the one you're talking about, this is with the cutoff, and all the traffic will be defer into the street. So there will not be like a blind point. So it'll be like more, it's all visible and a clear sight distance for the bikers and pedestrians. So it's already addressed in our design. And if you want, I could share the plan sheet showing where's the cutoff for exact points for that's the into the trail.
And we'll make sure that's on the website. So it sounds like it won't follow the current path where it's a sharp turn, but in fact, it'll veer out.
Yep.
And then just so we're clear, on the presentation, there was orange, dark, or a burnt orange and a green. The green was on the trail, and the burnt orange was in the street, correct? And there was a question on what was green, what was orange in the indication on the trail.
The green line that's off the street, and the red line that's on the street. That will be on the street. Yep.
Okay.
Got it right.
Thanks. And with that, if we can unmute Mr. Patton so that he can ask his question. Mr. Patton?
Oh, yes. This is kind of one thing is just a comment, a little thing. Your presentation is fantastic, and you specified the impacts to to the road for motorists and for pedestrians, but you may want to be a little more explicit as to the impacts of any cyclists that use the actual corridor where the trail is going to go. If they use that today, what would be their accommodations during construction? But I'm presuming, actually, I'm fairly familiar with the area. I live in Takoma Park, that the recommendations that you'll have for trail users who use the MBT corridor is to continue to use 3rd Street and the on-road route to get to Fort Totten, and pretty much stay away from the construction area, and then you won't have to deal with all of those detours and upsets that happen with construction. This is another kind of comment. I would encourage you to do what you can to put out some kind of press release or something to the city of Takoma Park, to the proper community organizations in Silver Spring. I know you'll use WABA to get information out, but many of the people who use this corridor are coming from Maryland, and they're really excited and looking forward to the construction. But it'll be good to keep those people informed of the construction, the website as a place to stay up to date as things go along, and make sure those communities are engaged in tracking the process, even though it's something that's happening in the district.
Ms. Pat, I just want to make sure, because I want to, and I know you have a few more, but I want to kind of make sure we get an opportunity to answer. So we will definitely, we can share the information of the project website, with the bordering organizations. And then I think the question was around the route and traffic. I don't get too far into it, and we also have several others so I'll make sure to come back to you. But I think you had asked at least one question I wanted to make sure that we got an answer to regarding the current construction and route. So, Sarah,
yeah, I could answer that. So thanks, Robert, for your question. So yeah, I understand there's like a biker using Fort Totten and Takoma area for commute, but I think for Blair Road and Riggs Road is not still designed completely to be used as a bike route.
Yeah.
And also we discussed this earlier. So even if we finish the phases of the project, we still is not fully completed to be used as a trail since fully like it's a project completed. So we still recommended the bikers still use the existing route they've been using now.
Okay.
Until the project fully completed and open for all users, because we have some signage, some limit marking to be done, and we don't want to be able like using the trail during construction till it's fully completed. Then we open it as once it's complete. So once the full is complete, we can use. During the construction, we recommend not to use it yet because it did not have the proper signage and not the proper like limit marks yet. So. Right. I'll encourage who using the bikers to use that current condition or to use maybe Third Street. I think this is now been used. But once fully committed, guys, we're happy for you guys to use because there is different phases and we have to coordinate with our contractor and what materials arrive and how we're gonna we're gonna start and end. So I recommend to use the existing condition till we finish the whole project. So
yes, that very much that makes a lot of sense. So the biggest question I had, the main question was, I'm very impressed that you're coordinating with utility companies to do the work, so there's one kind of upset of the infrastructure in the corridor and everything gets fixed all at once. I'm very impressed with that. Is the utility work included in this project budget, or do they bring some budget from their own project efforts to that work and you just kind of coordinate the actual scheduling of the activity on site?
So typically in DDOT, when we have a project coming up in that area, so we let all utilities about our projects coming. So once we construct, we have like a 5 years rule. No one should dig in the roadway. So all these utilities, they need to do the upgrade before we are in. So like for example, Washington Gas, DC Water, and like all these utilities, they have some like improvement they want to do. So they do it before we're in, because once we are in, all these like facilities we build, we don't want to be destroyed or like damaged. So this is kind of like coordination, and they have their own budget. They come and they do their improvements at the same time, because once we finish the trail, we have like a 5 years rule. No one's allowed to underground or dig our public space. So this is all. Well, we've been coordinating with them. I think now DC Water and Washington Gas, they do some like pipe improvements along Blair Road. So we coordinate with them now. Once they finish, we move in and we just like resurface and rebuild the road as before. So we are in coordination with them actually since design actually until now. And now they are in construction. I think these two are now in construction on Blair Road. They're doing some work there. I'm sure you guys see them.
Thank you, Sammer. So, and again, Ms. Bagnet, I want to get to other questions, but we will make sure to answer all questions this evening. So you definitely have another opportunity to ask questions. The next question is from Ryan. Is there a bridge going over Riggs? This is one of the most dangerous places. If not, what activities will be used to mitigate or make the space safer?
I think there's no bridge going across Riggs. We're gonna make a right left turn from First Place to Riggs, and then we have a signal, existing signal, which will be we're gonna reprogram and redesign to accommodate the trail there. So I think the bridge. I think you talk about the bridge. That's something in the planning stage. I'm not sure Mike Alvino want to speak to that. He probably know more about this. I know what we're going for.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thanks, Samer.
Welcome.
Yeah, this is something that was studied in the environmental assessment that was done for the project back in 2014. And at the time that was ruled out, the park, to land a bridge across Riggs Road, it would require landing on National Park Service property. That is a decision that we are interested in revisiting in the future, and we have funding from the mayor's office and from council to begin that study next year. So that's something that we're going to look at. But as Samer mentioned, in this particular project, we've already added the new traffic signal across Riggs Road at First Street Northeast. That will be a safe option to cross Riggs Road.
Thank you. So then just continue with the questions. During the presentation, you spoke about green space reclamation. Can you explain what that is?
Do you want to speak, Sean, about that? I think you want to.
Yeah, sure. So it's mainly just upgrading or updating some of the green space areas with new sod, essentially, and maybe doing some pruning of the existing trees, and essentially just making the area greener.
Thank you. With there being no signal work during phase 2 to allow for the safe crossing of how will you allow for the safe crossing of New Hampshire Avenue?
I'm sorry, what's the question again? I'm sorry.
So with no signal work happening in phase 2, how will you allow for the safe crossing of New Hampshire Avenue?
Yeah, because wherever the existing condition will stay the same, and yeah, we're not gonna have signal work till phase 3 because signal equipment it takes time to order. So we're in coordinate with our contractor to get all the signal equipment, poles, cabinet, all that. Normally those things it take time to arrive. So that's why the contractor, when submit the schedule to us, he put in phase 3 to do the signal works. But that's why we moved that signal phase 3 because it's based on the materials we receive and we move. So we thought like phase 3 would be the perfect phase to install the signals. But the intersection will be everyone could use the biker or pedestrian pedestrian you could use the intersections as is now till we construct the signal, and as soon it's fully like activate and work, we could like program it and being used fully functional. Then we could it can be used as signal at intersection. But right now we have to wait till phase 3 till the signal works.
Summer, I would add to that, you know, when the hardware is installed in phase 3 for the signals, the old signals will still be functioning. They will still be functioning until the new signals are activated. So the existing conditions that Samir was talking about, so you will still be able to use or go by the existing signals that are out there.
Thank you both. Rabiha Mateen, you are off mute to ask your question.
The question that I had was basically I wanted to know what the impact. I didn't actually see on the plans what the impact was on space for vehicles. I'm assuming that if you're making more room for bikes, that means it's sort of a zero-sum game and that there's going to be less space for vehicles. But I didn't actually see that on your plans. Can you please explain or show us what the impact is going to be on vehicles? Because not everybody is, I think that even though, more green space, I think is positive, not everybody is capable of walking long distances nor of biking. You have to remember that this is also, we have an aging population. So how is that going to be inclusive of that segment of the population, and what is the impact again on space for vehicles? Over.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what do you mean by space for vehicle? Are you talking about parking, or you mean lane width, or
Lane
Getting,
width, first of all, lane width. So the number
Okay.
of cars that can pass through that area at any given period of time, as well as the lessening or the reduction of parking space in related areas? How is that going to impact both of those? Over.
Mary, you want to answer that?
yeah, I could answer that. So there is no reduction in parking for this section. We actually adding 11 spaces along Blair Road. And also the reason why we maybe talk about, if you talk about commuting on Blair Road, so the city design, we have like different like local roads. So there's other like ways of commute along, like we have Blair Road, 3rd Street, 4th Street. So there's all different ways to move around with vehicles. And also like this part of the project also we serving the safety improvement along Blair Road due to the high speed people drive commute on Blair Road, and people who live on this community we receive some complaint about like the speed, and you're looking for like more safer neighborhood. So eliminating one lane is called like a road diet method, so just to reduce the speed and make sure people drive in a slower speed than what they're driving now. So I think this will be more improvement for the neighborhood and more quiet neighbors for Takoma area and Fort Totten. And we're having like 2 lanes south and north Blair Road for who commute in and out the city as well, but with like sufficient speed, and we will meet the speed limits on Blair Road. So safety comes first when it comes to the city like priorities.
So Ms. Mateen's follow-up was that 3rd Street corridor is an area that residents already find problematic in terms of traffic calming. Are we to understand that 3rd Street will be getting more traffic due to this project, as traffic will be redirected towards 3rd Street? This is an issue for those who reside on 3rd. And there's again a request if the presenters could please speak up as you're responding to the questions.
Hey, Samer, I can speak to this a little bit if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so as Samer was mentioning, with the reduction of travel lanes on Blair Road, we did an extensive traffic diversion analysis to project where that traffic would go. So I just wanted to respond to that specific point about traffic on 3rd Street. So we do not expect additional traffic to be routed towards 3rd Street. As an element of this project that was shown earlier, we'll actually be changing 3rd Street between Blair Road and Whittier Street to be one-way southbound. So with the reduction of travel lanes coming out of the northbound lane of Blair Road, that traffic, the majority of that traffic can actually be served on Blair Road with 1 lane. If you think of Blair Road right now, there's only 1 lane southbound, but 2 lanes northbound. So that traffic can be met with those existing lanes. To the extent that there is diversion, it's really regional in nature, and we expect that there may be some diversion before folks would get to Blair Road, and those folks would utilize Eastern Avenue, 16th Street.
Thank you, Michael. So we have a question that was earlier entered into the chat. Can you specify that there will be no bikes riding up down Sandy Spring itself, but that they will be off the road on a constructed trail off the west side of Sandy Spring? Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct.
Great. How will the Metropolitan Branch Trail users in this stretch cross west to go across Blair? I am thinking about our kids who need to get to the schools on 5th Street Northwest. So I guess the question is crossing.
What's the question, Donzel? Is it in the chat? Is it?
Yeah, that's one of the questions in the chat. How users, during this phase, in this stretch cross west to get across Blair, the school towards the schools on 5th Street.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'll mention is, with the reduction of travel lanes on Blair Road, there'd be fewer lanes of traffic to go across Blair Road. At those intersections, sort of north of, in the vicinity of Rittenhouse and Sheridan Street, we'll be adding curb extensions along the west side of Blair Road that will make it easier to cross, as well as some of the treatments that Sean mentioned that are coming in phase 5 are those median refuge islands that will be added at Oglethorpe Street, at Nicholson Street, a couple other places, so that people crossing Blair Road going westbound will have a safer experience crossing Blair Road.
Thank you, Michael. So someone asking this just in the sense it's kind of in the same area. They missed, can you talk about how 8th Street will be impacted by the project?
So I can speak to that. I think, is this question about 8th Street Northeast? That was mentioned earlier in the project, in the slides. That is a section that is separate from this project that DDOT is expecting to add protected bike lanes to that section between Hamlin Street and, or Franklin Street, I should say, and Monroe later this summer.
Great. And it looks, okay, so it looks like those who had hands have lowered them. So let's continue with the written questions. Why was the Whittier Street alignment chosen over the Van Buren Street and Aspen Street alignments? Whittier is the only option without a traffic signal to cross Blair Road. This poses an unnecessary risk to an unnecessary risk. And also they say if bikes will be on road, on Maple, from Carroll to Sandy Spring, there will be a significant safety problem. So there are a couple of things here. So let me just start with that one. If somebody wants to speak to why Whittier Street alignment was chosen over the Van Buren Street and Aspen Street alignments, and then I'll get to the next part.
I think that one for the other segment of the Mid Branch Trail between Whittier alignment and Van Buren alignment, and actually we didn't choose Whittier over Van Buren. We'll be having both alignments as the next phase of Mid Branch Trail, Piney Branch to Blair. So the two elements will be like it's been chosen to be the options for the two like routes to Blair Road. So we're not choosing one over another. Both will be part of Mid Branch Trail.
Okay, so actually, it's not choosing Whittier, but just that, Van Buren and Aspen, they'll also be part of the trail. Is that accurate, Sam?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So if bikes will be on road on Maple from Carroll to Sandy Spring, there will be a significant safety problem. Cars driving north on Sandy Spring already face a blind turn onto Maple. The face a lane of parking on the east side and barely enough width from north driving cars to pass south driving cars on Maple. And adjacent to a seniors building with a too narrow sidewalk, this is a recipe for significant accidents both during the day and at night. So can you speak to like the congestion and potential congestion on Maple from Carroll to Sandy Spring? And specifically in that space, will the trail be on road or off road?
So the project will be done at Sandy Springs. So Maple will become not part of the MBT, so it will be like the end of the project. But that's why we defer the cyclists to Maple, because we're going to have cyclists coming from Maple down to Spring with the blind point you mentioned earlier in your previous question, Judy. So that's why we just like moving the vehicle to make it more safer for pedestrian on the trail for this section.
Okay. The next question we have is, what is the impact on the street area for vehicles? And I think you kind of touched this, i.e., is it anticipated that to make room for bikes, we will lose street space for vehicles? So will the lanes be reducing the lanes? And if so, in certain areas, if you can speak to those areas,
Oh,
or
okay,
will you be
okay.
reducing lane width?
Room for the bikes and lose free space for vehicles. So we designed the lane for vehicles based on the standard is 11 feet wide, so that would be the standard for any lane along Blair. So we keep it like 11 feet wide. So that's being the bus like width lane as well. So I think it's not gonna impact the width of the road for on Blair Road. Blair Road is it's a wide like roadway, so it's not gonna reduce or do reduction on the lane for vehicles on to accommodate the trail.
Okay. And when will the crosswalk work on Whittier, Anther, or Blair happen? Is that in the current phase, or is there a future phase of that?
That would be in the future phases, probably phase 5. That's the one, it's the end of the project. That would be in phase 5. So this is the last phase of the project. So because starting from Fort Totten, moving up, so phase 1 from Fort Totten, and there are 5 phases. So Whittier will be and Blair Road will be like between, I think, phase 4 and phase 5. So because we have some crosswalk along Blair too, and some refugee islands as well be added, as what Michael said earlier.
Okay. And as far as staging for construction during phase 1, where will that be located?
Phase 1 start from Fort Totten to first place in New Hampshire. That's the phase 1 will be.
Yeah, but they were asking like, where will the equipment and staging for this phase, where will that stuff be? I guess, Sean, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sam.
So that one I have to coordinate with the contractor to see where they're gonna have their staging area for the materials. So that will be the coordination with our contractor, and we'll update this information in the project website once we find out where.
Okay, so right now, what you're saying is we'll update the project website to include staging as we get close to the beginning of phase 1.
Yes.
All right. So, and then how will you be notifying residents of work on their blocks? Emails or flyers or some other method? So I didn't know if Sam, if you want to go first, and then I'll follow up behind you on that.
Yeah, the way we would be like would be website, would be advisory like signs. Also, we can like reach out to residents who live on the section we'll be working, just let them know in advance about what's happening in front of their homes. So within the flyers, and also website and safety advisor as well. So all kind of methods, and you could.
Absolutely right. Traffic advisory, the website, and what we can do is if a person emails saying they want to be notified, we can let them know when the website has been updated with new information. So.
And we also will be going door to door in some cases when we have to coordinate with a specific location.
Right. Right.
Activity.
Thank you all. So, this is from Timothy. As I'm sure you've heard before, understanding that there's no signal work until phase 2, the New Hampshire area really feels like a death trap. Pedestrians are literally running for their lives at New Hampshire, South Dakota, and McDonald Place. DDOT has promised in the past that since signal installation was not going to happen until after COVID, that they would upgrade the pedestrian crosswalks. To date, that hasn't happened. Please advise if that will be happening in this, and when and what phase, if it is happening. So I guess specifically the question is around on New Hampshire, South Dakota, McDonald Place. Will there be any signalization or crosswalk upgrades?
I think yes. The answer is yes for that. Yes.
and if yes, which phase would that potentially be in?
So as I said earlier, the signal hardware will be installed in phase 3. Now the crosswalk remarkings, or I guess updating of the crosswalks, the roadway pavement markings typically are one of the last things that get done, but we can certainly discuss amongst the team about doing, we do have an option to do temporary markings. We can go out and look at the area and certainly put down some temporary markings if we need to. But the signals themselves, the hardware goes up in phase 3, and the actual activation will be closer towards the end of the project.
Right, and so he did say phase 3 versus phase 2. Thank you for that. And also, I want to point out, Michael Avino has placed, for anyone who wants more information or to look at it in more detail, he's placed the link for the Blair Road to Piney Branch section, which includes Van Buren Street and Whittier Street. So thank you for that. Next question is, a question that I kind of want to shift to, and then we'll come back up is anything planned for the Metro green space between Tucker Street Northwest, Underwood Street Northwest, that is east of Blair Road? This section was not included in your renderings. So I guess that's more of a WMATA issue, but I think but not sure if Sam or Sean wanted to speak to that.
I'm not sure. I'd have to defer that to Samir.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything planned for the green space between. Yeah, I think we have been planned for this project, but I'm not sure. Yeah, we have not. No.
Yeah, I think for a portion of that green space is where the trail will run, but beyond the trail, we don't have anything special planned.
Yeah, I think that the trail itself is opposite of the WMATA parking area. It's on the opposite side of the street, so it's in that location.
Great. This next one seems more of a statement, and Mr. Yeats, if it is a question there, and because I'm just going to read it because I want to make sure your statement gets acknowledged. But if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. It just says the lane removal at Blair up to Aspen is something I've heard as a plus for many residents. There was a multi-fatality accident caused by unsafe passing there a few years back, and children cross the street there between the school and the playgrounds, and it is a short crossing signal, a long distance to cross, and the cars in multiple lanes cause multiple threat, red light running. So I guess it was just an indication in support of, shrinking that space, the bike lane, to reduce the path that pedestrians have to cross there as well. It looks like I have 2 hands raised, but I don't have. Let me pull up. But I'm not seeing them on my screen. So if there are, we can unmute the first one and allow them to ask their question.
This is Howard Marks. I live in Chinatown, and I use the Met Branch Trail regularly to go up to Takoma. So my question for you is, there's a little discussion about what happens at either end of the study area. Excuse me. The first is what is the proposal to get from Carroll and Maple to Silver Spring? I've gone on a temporary trail there around the metro station, the Takoma metro station, and you wind up on Eastern Avenue, which is like the grade of a roller coaster. It's 2 lanes, very dangerous. I stopped doing it. I was afraid I was going to get hit, frankly. So that's the first question. What happens at the north end, and what kind of communication have you had with MDOT or with the people responsible at the north end? And then at the south end, on the Catholic University campus, at the Brookland Catholic University metro station, bicyclists and pedestrians mix with each other for about 50 feet as they try to get around, circumnavigate the entrance to the metro station. So just those 2 issues, north end and south end. Thank you.
I can speak to that, Samir.
Thank you.
Yeah, so at the north end, yeah, that's the subject of a separate project where this project ends, Sandy Spring and Maple, we have another alternative alignment that routes through the Takoma area on the west side of the railroad tracks. And that project is currently in the design phase. We call that section the Blair Road to Piney Branch section. So I just put the link, and so you can see what alternatives were evaluated and what the chosen alignment or alignments are going to be for that section. And then from the intersection of Piney Branch Road and Eastern Avenue, the trail extends into City of Takoma Park, Maryland, who we've coordinated with. And within the City of Takoma Park, they've got a separate project to repave the existing section of their trail. When it goes into Maryland, Eastern Avenue becomes Takoma Avenue. And that section, with the roller coaster, the pavement is in pretty poor condition. So they've just completed a study to repave that section and resurface and widen it. So I encourage you to look at the City of Takoma Park's plans for that. And then from there beyond, we have been in coordination with Montgomery County DOT as the plan for the Met Branch Trail is to link up with the Capital Crescent Trail and the Purple Line. Down at the southern end, as you mentioned, this section of trail will tie directly into the section of trail that we just completed at the Fort Totten Metro Station. As you mentioned, there is sort of a 50-foot gap around the Brookland Station area where people, trail users, particularly those on bike, are mingling, forced to sort of share the space with pedestrians and people going to and from the metro station there. That is something we're working with WMATA on a redesign of, but it will be a longer term completion for that. We don't have a time frame for that Brookland Station area at this point.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we have Judy, who had her hand raised. Judy?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. At the risk of being seeming like a broken record here, I'm the person that keeps raising the issue about Sandy Spring and Maple. And as I said before, as it is now, if you travel east on Aspen and turn left on Sandy Spring, you cannot see any cars coming south. And you are driving north, looking directly at an apartment building. You do not see the road that's to the right. There's a sharp and rather blind turn. And you turn onto Maple, whereupon if there was a car coming south, they couldn't see you either. And then you have parked cars on your right. So it's already a hazard. And I just do not understand. I don't foresee that bicycles flying south on Maple are going to, first of all, where is it? They're going to be in the same lane with the drivers. And then it's a sharp turn. I don't understand the value of this choice at all. I don't know why the bikes aren't going north and south on Willow, which is a straight line from Aspen all the way up and down the street. It doesn't make any sense to me. And no matter what you say, I'm still not being able to envision it. It's my neighborhood and I drive up and down that street. Actually, I drive up that street occasionally if I have to, and mostly I don't drive on it because I don't think it's safe for cars now either. So there you go.
Thank you, Judy. Simmer, would you like to respond? Or?
Yeah. So Judy, I'm not sure like what your concern here. Are you concerned about the pedestrian safety, the bike safety, or the vehicle safety? Because I'm not sure like what. All three.
All
okay.
three of those, of course. Why would I?
But
be,
that's what I.
I'm sorry. Why would exactly I be any more concerned about one or the other? And certainly, I would put pedestrians first.
Yes, which is, I agree with you, but that should come first. So now you're talking about the existing condition, which is now Sandy Spring. There is no trail on the left side of Sandy Spring. Only there's a sidewalk, which is what was done recently by DDOT on the east side. And also on Aspen, we only have a sidewalk there. So
I'm really
there's,
concerned about
yeah,
the Sandy Spring Maple turn there, because I
Sandy
don't see
Spring
where
Maple.
you're putting a bike trail that isn't either on the sidewalk or in the middle of the south, the lane where the cars are driving south.
Right, so Judy, I understand your deep concern about the safety there, but I do ask that you please allow Samara to answer the question, that you've asked. So Samara, please continue.
Yeah, just like because now you're concerned about the existing condition now, which is now either there's a sidewalk, like I said, on the east side, and there's nothing on the west side. So adding the trail on the west side, this is for mostly bicyclists. That's why we add the sidewalk on the east side, so for pedestrian to walk on that. So there's a separation between the bicyclist and the pedestrian on Sandy Spring. And also when we said we're moving the bicyclists to go on the ramp, go to Maple, because this is where is the blind spot, which is, you mentioned this before, and we agree with its blind spot. That's why we defer the bikers to be on Maple. And it's not mean like they have no cautious. The bikers, when they get off on Sandy Spring, we have some cautious, and like we have to slow down when you go to Maple. And also the speed limit there is 25, I think 25 miles per hour. So the car should be slowed down on the turn. So when you get off on Sandy Spring to the Maple, bikers, we have a better like side distance to see Maple Street. And also if bikers coming from Maple down to Spring, they have to get on the ramp into Sandy Spring, so we'll be separated from the car. And the pedestrian will be on the east side on the sidewalk. So there is like a separation between the vehicle and the bicyclist and the pedestrians. So that's how we do. And also we're adding some stop sign control on Aspen and Sandy Spring to slow down traffic who's come from Maple down to Aspen on Spring.
And
So it's just your concern is the existing condition, which is, I agree, the existing condition is kind of dangerous. That's why we do the improvement there, just to like separate all these like traffic traffic mods.
I can add to that a little bit, Samir. So I have the plans pulled up in front of me here. So a bicyclist traveling west on Maple Street and approaching that tight corner that you're speaking about on Sandy Spring, before they get to that corner, they'll have an opportunity with the project, the new sidewalk that we'll be putting on the north side of Maple. It looks like about 200 feet up Maple Street. They'll have an opportunity to leave the roadway and get on the sidewalk before they have to make that turn. And then they can continue, as Samir said, onto the west side of Sandy Spring Road on the trail and then continue there. So ideally, this design should take bicyclists off the street, or at least give them an opportunity to get off the street and get out of the way of vehicle traffic. I hope that will, I believe that what Samir is trying to say is the intent here is to kind of to calm that effect that bicyclists have on the vehicles there by giving them an opportunity to get off the street before they actually have to turn south onto Sandy Springs Road from Maple Street.
Thank you, Sean. So I have to say, I think, I don't doubt that Judy and others who are listening in the chat, misheard Sam. It's more of they really just believe it is a dangerous location. The ask, I think, and I don't know if we can reconcile, the existing conditions and what you all have articulated. I guess one alternative would be if we could perhaps, whether it's in the, on the project website or others, really unpack existing conditions, what will happen, at that, so people can, visually see the things that you all are talking about to mitigate the blind spot and provide, a safer path of travel on Maple, Sandy Spring and Maple. So, like I said, I think, as we look at the different comments there, both from Judy, Robert, and others, and I think they're hearing you say, you're making some changes. There are some current existing conditions that are quite dangerous. I think the disconnect is them being able to understand without a visual manipulative around what will be the change. So I think what we can potentially do so that we get to some of the other questions is try to unpack that on the website. Does that seem like a way forward, Sammer and Sean?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
No,
So I do
absolutely.
want to, because I want to make sure we get, we have some time, but I want to make sure we get to some of the other questions that we have here. One question is a technical question. The person said, they appreciate the dedicated website, but the follow project tab requires ArcGIS account. Is it possible for DDOT or the project to email weekly construction notices to a list without a GIS account if a person doesn't want to sign up for that?
I'm sorry, Daniel, can you, which question is that? Sorry, I didn't follow up.
I'm sorry, yeah, it was
Yeah.
from, I believe it's Ukina, which says, thank you for the dedicated site. They went to the follow project tab, which requires an ArcGIS account. Is it possible for DDOT to email weekly construction notice to a list without individuals having to use an ArcGIS account?
Okay, let me check with our DDOT IT if we could do that. So I will reach out to our DDOT IT if we could let people sign up for like notification to the website. We could send to their emails. Probably we could do it, but let me just like talk to the IT and DDOT. We could just make this happen.
Okay.
Actually, thank you for that. That's actually a good idea to have.
And then Mary Lauren Calhoun noted had to go, but thankful for the meeting and is excited that she and her family are about being able to bike safely to and from Tacoma in car-free spaces. The next, again, is about Whittier, which is incredibly narrow and has heavy traffic. Is there a place to submit comments to request that alignment be changed that will have crossovers on Van Buren, since Van Buren is significantly less trafficked in one way? So is there a place that people want to add comment about the current route direction? Is this the time, or is there a place that they can make those comments?
I think this is if we talk about the other section of MPT about like between George Van Buren and Whittier. I think we decided to use the two options. So we'll let the biker decide which route they will take to continue MPT for the next section, which is in design now. So maybe we could talk more in detail. Like what Michael Alvina said earlier, we'll have like another public meeting, talk about that in design detail, and we could talk about those options in the next meetings.
And that was reflected by, I guess, another participant who said the discussion of Whittier and versus Van Buren is related to a separate project at an earlier phase of planning, and not this immediate construction project. And then there's kind of, just a clarification. Isn't Whittier's section an actual off-street trail? So first, is Whittier's section an off-street trail?
Yes, could be off-street.
Right. And then, so therefore, in the sense of how could it affect traffic? Mr. Patton again follow-up said, can individual pages from the construction drawings be downloaded from the DDOT MBT website?
Yes, all of them already posted in websites. The construction one, they're already on website. The presentation, all the design, during design and construction, all archive file, all of them on the MBT website right now. If you go to the website, you'll find everything in.
Right. And this is based off, sorry.
No, you're good, thanks.
Okay, and this is based off of Sean's comment around, the possible discussion around interim temporary markings. Just Timothy noted, please put down temporary markings. And again, thanks for the presentation. Howard Marks asks, what happens at the north end of the trail, and what communication have you had with organizations there? And what about the south end? So the north end, I guess, would be, I think we've answered that, because that was about, have you communicated with organizations in Maryland, but I don't know if we touched on the south end of the trail.
To follow
We
that
answered
question.
that question verbally.
Okay, I
About the
apologize.
Brookland Station area.
Right, you did. I apologize. Yes, that was the answer. Sorry, thank you. And Kate asked, if it's off street at Whittier, there's no place to go except through grassy, treed areas, which would mean cutting down some mature trees, which seem unnecessary since there's already crossovers 1 block north and south. So I guess the first question is, as the trail on Whittier goes off-road, and I think you spoke to this earlier, Sam, are you expecting to cut down any trees in that area?
With your or mean on?
This is on Whittier. Are you expecting to
So
cut down?
they talk about 2 projects now. So with your, it's another project. So I think I will defer that question for
To
the
that
next
project
meeting.
team?
Yeah, because this is still in design, so it's not finalized yet. So I don't want to talk about this yet until we finalize the design for that. So this is part of the Mid Branch from Blair to Piney Branch. So there is a potential removing some trees, but we're not finalized that yet. We're still working on this, and I prefer to talk about in detail in the next section, the next meeting.
Yeah.
Right. And so
We
there was
do
an
not
earlier
have any.
question, will motorized wheelchair users be pushed
Dunzo,
towards?
give me 1 second, Dunzo. Yeah, so just to reiterate, we don't have any plans on this project to cut down any trees.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Sean. But there was an earlier question about will motorized wheelchair users be encouraged to use the trail? Someone else responded, motorized wheelchair users are legal pedestrians and can use the trail and the sidewalk system. I think that accurately answers, and I think we all align with that answer. So I don't know if we need to respond. I would pull those 2 together. We have a question regarding New Hampshire, McDonald, South Dakota. And again, you can speak to its inclusion into the project, but to the extent possible, the comment is, I encourage DDOT to activate the signals earlier rather than later. Even without this project, there are significant benefits to having a signal at the intersection, given the speed of traffic on New Hampshire, and waiting until the end for this one would be an unfortunate outcome. And I know, Sean, you talked about, it's really about putting in the infrastructure for the signals in order to be able to do that.
Yeah,
right?
we would love, I know Samira and I have talked about this already about some, with regard to just some of the other intersections, and, we would really like to be able to do that. But I think that the hindering part is, as Donzel said, the infrastructure. You want when you activate a signal, you want everything on the roadway to follow what the signal is telling you. So we have to make sure we get all that infrastructure in place. And we have discussed, certain intersections about the possibility of doing that. And we will certainly, look closely at this particular intersection that you're mentioning here.
Right. Then there's a question, will phase 1 include installing the missing curb cut on First Place Northeast near the metro station so that people on bikes approaching MBT at Fort Totten Station from the east can more easily get onto the trail?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a
Speak
chance
to that.
So thank you, Michael.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not part of this project. This project will tie in right at that northern, where the curb cut already exists, across from the Metro Police Station.
All right, thank you.
That the one Ms. Evans has asked about on the south of there.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I think Patrice has her hand up, so if we could unmute her so she can ask her question.
Hi.
Patrice?
Hi. Hello. Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
And so my hand was up in reference to Mahiba's statement, that I also wanted to add it about emergency vehicles throughout this whole project, because I keep hearing about the parking won't be affected. The lanes will be 2-way or 4-way, 2 on each side. But I don't understand how the emergency vehicles won't be affected, as well as motorists who, like where Biha said, are not capable of walking or biking the trails. And we don't want transportation that takes 5 minutes to be 25 minutes because we've added bike lanes and everything else um, in the streets. And so Vision Zero is going to be exactly that, especially over by Sandy, the street over there, because I've driven over there and I know that the vision is zero there. So that area there definitely needs some special attention to make sure everybody can see everybody approaching, which whatever kind of intersection that's being proposed.
But I can speak to the emergency vehicles. So, during the construction process, obviously we will make every accommodation we need to ensure that an emergency vehicle can get through the construction. So we will do whatever we have to make sure they can get through. So I can assure you that will happen. As far as the other stuff, I'll have to pass that to Cynthia.
Yeah, so for the budget, we're not taking along the trail. So, for example, rigs and first place, we're doing the trail off the street. So we'll be like, we're not minimizing any lane weight. Same thing with rigs and most of Blair Road as well. It's gonna be off the street, and also all Blair will be off the street. But once we get from Rittenhouse to Aspen, we'll be taking a lane for the trail. But still, that section of Blair Road, it's wide enough to let the emergency vehicle to go through. And our design is been designed to meet the standard of emergency vehicle, buses, and delivery vehicle to be able to pass through Blair Road in that section. And also between Rittenhouse, from Kansas and Blair to Rittenhouse, we'll be providing additional parking on those sides. So the width of the road is not going to change; will stay the same. So adding the bike lane is not going to impact any lane reductions for motorists commuting in and out of Blair Road.
Thank you, Samar.
You're welcome.
So I think so again, there were, while we were having a discussion about Sandy Spring and Maple and safety, there were several questions there. And even a discussion about it being one way, which is outside of the purview of the project. There was a comment, another public meeting to address the next project, Blair to Piney Branch, would be appreciated. And again, if they share some of the concerns with and confusion about, Whittier, but perhaps confusion about the area in Whittier, better, let me just see, it says about with some of these concerns about Whittier, but perhaps better, more accessible visuals would help the community understand the logic. So it's just a comment about, being able to unpack the other project from Blair to Piney Branch. There was other responses. This, I think, is the final question that we have here. On the very southern part of this segment, can a curb ramp be added at the Fort Totten Metro Station closer to the bus loop where the MBT north, the trail northbound comes back down to street level? It's challenging to come from the trail and then go southeast towards North Michigan Park. At that, and especially at that speed coming off of the race section. So, Samar?
I'm not sure which section exactly. Is it for the loop around Fort Totten Metro Station? Is that the one?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry.
Part of this segment, can a curb ramp be added at the Fort Totten Metro Station closer to the bus loop? It would be where, the Metropolitan Branch Trail northbound comes back down to the street level.
I think that's the one from the one that's been completed, Michael Vina, I think. This is the one.
Yeah, this is in the project area of the Brookland to Fort Totten section. So it's
Let me,
included in this project. It's something we're aware of and looking to add, but it's not part of this Fort Totten to Tacoma project.
we could look into it. Let's see what we could do for that. Something we could just offline we could look at it, Michael, and we could just think about it if we could add it. Because yeah, I need to orient myself exactly where the location of the RAM will be. So something we could follow up with.
Right. And then Robin Martine has her hand raised. If you can go off mute.
Thank you. So my last question, it's pretty much, as you had mentioned before, just being able to kind of unpack some things and having an opportunity, because I think there's some confusion, in terms of what was presented versus, documents that we've already, seen, and we just want to be clear in terms of what's going on. The concern that I have is congestion on rigs going into Missouri, particularly as you are going south or north onto, either onto Fort Totten Metro or coming out of it. As it is currently, it is very much congested, particularly with the school being across the street, and that being a major thoroughfare, people trying to get north and south to go to work. My concern is, again, my impression was that that lanes were going to be taken out, thereby creating additional backlog. And from what I'm understanding now, that's not the case. I'm not really sure how you provide for connection to the transit or the bike lanes from Fort Totten without doing that. So I'm a little bit unclear as to how that's going to work, but my major concern is how that's going to practically happen without creating additional bottlenecks, as we already have them. Is my question clear, Mr. Robinson?
Yeah. So what the three components that I'm hearing you. One is looking forward to having this the specifics of this phase of the trail unpacked in a way that allows individuals to see exactly how the trail and the traffic will interact, and so they can speak more clearly about what's happening. And then and then from that you articulated so that's the question, right? Like, where can that happen? How can they see it? Because it was like you heard that it was some things that were where lanes would be removed, but it doesn't seem like that's happening where you thought. So looking for that ability to know exactly what's happening, and specifically, and it was shared while we were doing the discussion of how the traffic and the trail itself will interact in certain road spaces.
Correct. That's correct. You've captured that adequately, particularly as it deals with joining the trail right near the Fort Totten Metro, and then the egress onto Missouri, which then becomes a Riggs Road going north and south because of the current congestion. So it's both of those points, sir. And thank you.
Thank you.
So, Samir, if you want, I can answer, or you can answer.
Answer if you want, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so the trail section there at the Fort Totten Metro is an off-road trail section. So we're not actually going to be reducing the roadway width there. There is a little bit of corner realignment there from First Place onto Riggs Road, which would be the southwest corner of that intersection there, or that transition point. And then as it continues, the trail continues on the Riggs Road, the curb location or width of Riggs Road stays the same. It does not decrease. And the trail section there continues to be off-road trail section. So I think to answer your question, we're not changing, we wouldn't be changing the width of Riggs Road per se, which would, create any more bottleneck.
And Sean, that representation, I know we wanted to keep the deck succinct for this, initial meeting. Can that be added to the website?
Yeah, I don't see why not. This, this, you can actually see this in the trail plans as well. It gets
Right.
very specific for this location. So, yeah, this would, I believe this is already on the website, if I'm not mistaken. Samir.
Yes, they are. And also we have like a road map showing the arterial with the trail alignments for the whole segment. It's showing where is the trail be off the street, and we're not taking any lanes on Riggs or First Place. So if I could drop these in the chat, if you could have it, like it's arterial look, so it's not like a blueprint plan. It's more like showing the trail alignments from Riggs all the way. I mean, from First Place all the way to Blair Road. I'll add it to the chat here.
Yeah. Thank you, Samir. So
No
Garrett H has his hand raised. We can bring Garrett off mute. Ask the question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Never sure how the WebEx app works. Good evening. My name is Garrett Hennigan. I'm with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. I just wanted to quickly share a note of gratitude and thanks to this project team. I personally have been involved in the many iterations of the community discussions around this project for, at least a decade, going back to 2013, 14, 15, 16. And so I think it's often hard to keep that span of sort of discussion in mind. But this is probably the sixth or seventh sort of time that the community has come and learned about the project again, with lots of new faces. So just wanted to thank y'all for all of that work. This project is going to be transformative. We talk about traffic a lot. We talk about unsafe roads, and this is going to give so many people, students, commuters, workers, a safe way to get to metro, to school, and all that. So thank you so very much. I wanted to ask very quickly about safe accommodations for pedestrians. We've talked about, bicyclists can continue using the existing on-street signed route on 3rd Street and whatnot. But for pedestrians, for when existing sidewalks, need to be closed for building the new trail or for other work, are you going to be routing pedestrians across Blair Road? And I guess, can you speak more to how the safe accommodations will be handled, with the hope, I'll say, that really we don't ever need to force people to cross Blair Road on foot, especially if it's unsignalized, even if that, during the daytime maybe has an impact on traffic, but keeping people walking and on foot and potentially in wheelchairs safe should be the priority. So thanks again so much for your work on this, and looking forward to June 18th, 2025.
Thank you, Samir. If you want to start, then
Thanks.
Yeah, actually,
Samir, if you want to. Yeah, so the pedestrians, there will be a few detours. I will start by saying that none of the detours will move pedestrians across any road away from an intersection. When you do a pedestrian detour, it's actually law that you cannot move that. You have to move them across any road at the closest intersection. And we do, unfortunately, I think we do have one or two spots where we do have to move them across Blair Road for safety reasons, but there again, it would be done at an intersection. And we do have a plan to put, if we actually need to, for safety reasons, we can put the contractor has somebody we can put at that intersection to assist with crossing the road there. So if that does present a problem safety-wise, we're prepared to address that and mobilize to make that as safe as possible. But otherwise, pedestrians we're going to try our best to keep pedestrians as close to the original location as possible. But when it becomes a safety issue, moving with construction equipment moving in and out behind barriers, we do feel it's safer, relatively speaking, to move the next closest crosswalk there with signals and everything that, but if it does become, we see that it becomes a safety issue, or, we see that it would be before we ever get to that, then we have steps in place that we can, up the ante there a little bit.
Thank you, Sean. And I think with that, there's one last question, but I think we can advance the slide as we answer it. The question is, where will the earlier PowerPoint deck be posted? The PowerPoint deck for this project will be posted on the project website. And, so if anyone needs it, and I think someone has added in the chat where other project websites and PowerPoints are located. In addition to that, I want to note that the video from tonight's meeting will also be on the website within the week, as well as the Q&A. Again, if you want to stay updated and engaged in the progress of the project, please note the website link address at mbt-Fort Totten-Tacoma.dc.gov. And of course, the project email is metbranchtrail@dc.gov. One of the questions was asked, can we, get updates without having a GIS account? You can indicate as we work through the answer to that question. You can email the project email to say you would like updates, and we will work to make sure you get those. Again, thank you for your thoughtful questions and comments. Again, at the end of this meeting, we ask you to take a few minutes to fill out the Title VI form that allows us to know who is here. And I will turn it over to Sam and Sean to say goodnight. Close us out.
All right. Thank you very much for joining. I think we're looking forward for this project, and hopefully it will be like easy construction on you guys. I know it's going to be some struggle closing land and stuff, but bear with us. It's 2 years. We'll do more quickly. So
yeah.
looking forward with you guys.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody will be happy with the finished product. So,
all right. Thank you all. And good night. Next slide.
Good night.